Alright, before we start talking about the origins of Buddhism, we need to clear up a misconception. Western culture believes Buddha to be some round, bald, happy, jolly fellow. Well, that's not the actual Buddha. The actual Buddha goes by the name of Siddhartha Gautama, and he was an Indian prince. And as you can see from the depiction in the picture, he was not very jolly, he was very skinny, and he looks very feeble. And we'll explain why in a little bit. The other Buddha that Western culture has accepted as Buddha is actually the Buddhai, and that name means cloth sack. He was a Zen monk that carried around a cloth sack, and really nobody knows where he came from. He just started to appear in the early 800 AD. Statues of this Buddhai started to appear in the late 800s, and that has been accepted as in the Western culture as the Buddha. So there's a big misconception that we need to clear up. Moving on to the origins of Buddhism. So, Siddhartha Gautama was a prince from India, as I stated earlier, who was born into the Kshatriya class. And he started just feeling really horrible about seeing all the human suffering that was around him. He wasn't happy with his riches, he wasn't happy with his palace and all his money and his royalty, and he really wanted to know, why is there human suffering in the world? So when he was around the age of 30, he decided to leave everything behind, and he traveled around asking priests questions and meditating. And this lasted for 6 years. 6 years of meditating, wandering, wasn't eating much. So that obviously means that he was not a jolly fat man. After 6 years, he comes to the tree by the Ganges River, and he sits under it and he starts meditating for 7 weeks. Now that's a very long time, so obviously he was not eating a lot, and hence he is not a jolly fat man. During that 7-week period, he had a eureka moment. He discovered what causes human suffering. The first source is that people want what they like but do not have. So maybe that new phone's coming out. Oh, I want the iPhone 5 so bad. You don't have it. You want an Xbox, you want a video game, you want money, you want material goods, you want. Everything you see that you think you'd like, you want it. And that's a form of suffering when you don't have that desire to have it. The second one is wanting to keep what we like and already have. So maybe you have that phone, you have that Xbox, you have money, and no, you're not going to give it up. You're going to put up a fight so that you can keep it. You're not willing to part with it. And that struggle is a form of suffering. And the third one is not wanting what we dislike but have. So maybe you have a phone that's a little outdated. Like, oh, I hate this thing. Or maybe my Xbox isn't good. I hate this. I want something new. And maybe your little brother or sister comes up and like, oh, I don't have a phone. Can I have it? And you're like, oh, no, absolutely not. This is my phone. I'm keeping this thing. You can't have that. That's a form of suffering. The fact that you're not willing to give it away to somebody who might need it, or just give it up in general. That's a form of suffering. So after his 7 weeks of meditation, under what we now call the Tree of Wisdom, Siddhartha traveled on to see some buddies of his. And he's like, hey guys, check out what I did. This is what I discovered. This is where human suffering comes from. And I want you to know so that you can go out and teach it as well. So they ended up writing the Four Noble Truths. And this is a basis for Buddhism. You need to understand these in order to get through this life and end your suffering. The first noble truth is suffering and unhappiness are a part of human life. No one can escape sorrow. So of course in life you're going to have death of loved ones, you're going to have disappointments, there's going to be tragedies. You cannot stop that. You're going to feel sorrow at some point in your life, and you need to come to an understanding and accept that. The second noble truth is that suffering comes from our desires for pleasure and material goods. People cause their own suffering because they want what they can't have. So again, going back to the phones, the shoes, and the Air Jordans and all that, the video games, the money, you are causing pain on yourself because you want those things. You need to get rid of that desire. You need to be conscious of that desire and get rid of it in order to stop your suffering. The third truth is people can overcome desires and reach nirvana, ending the reincarnation cycle. So if you remember from the Hinduism video, I talked about nirvana, reaching that oneness, being happy, being free with your soul in the universe. You can overcome it and end the reincarnation cycle of coming back here and trying to break through. And the fourth and last noble truth is for people can overcome ignorance by following the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path we're going to work on in class and go over that. And that's basically a step-by-step way to live your life in order to understand these four noble truths and work your way to nirvana.